watched the Save Melee podcast. Anyways, okay.
Save Melee?
Oh, fuck off. Okay, let me do the intro. This is all gonna be...
It's making me shy again.
Hello guys, welcome to the grand return of Analog after our 4-week-long hiatus in which we learned, among many other things, that we're not Smash players, so we gotta change our description to just be about Melee. Normally we would say, especially after 4 weeks off, that we have a lot to talk about. But Rishi, I have no fucking clue what has gone on in Melee in the past 4 weeks. Do you?
I've just been playing Ultimate.
Right, exactly.
I actually played Melee for the first time on Sunday in maybe 5 or 6 solid weeks.
Yeah. If only we had
insane.
If only we had someone who obsessively follows tournaments and spent 20 hours formulating a ballot for PGR.
Too bad there's no one like that.
Yeah, too bad.
Alright guys, if you haven't, if that didn't tell you.
If you haven't noticed.
I need to turn down the gain on this. It is peaking so much. Alright, there we go. That should be better.
Cool.
Guys, we have Anok, Edwin Budding, the legend.
I know.
Mastermind of the, what's it called? Melee Stats podcast. And he's going to clue us in because he actually knows what's been going on in Melee for the past.
Yeah, this is the legendary Anok Palakurthi Edwin Budding, whose full name and full tag
are now out there for everyone.
Zane insists on repeating every time we bring him up.
So, just for reference, when we were recording the show, I texted Zane a little bit before, and I said, you know, is there anything you want me to come prepared for? Is there an agenda of topics? I can talk about this tournament or that tournament. You guys want to talk top 8 results? Zane doesn't respond for a little bit, and suddenly I hear back, no, we don't have an agenda.
Which longtime viewers of Analog should know, because
every time I can pull it up.
Yeah, pull up the document.
Oh boy.
Let's look at our most recent agendas. You write this in the 30 seconds I'm setting up the equipment.
These are like 2 bullet points.
Not all of these can be read aloud. I don't remember which ones, but just be wary. There's some good ones.
This is nothing. And then
I see which ones can't be read aloud.
Yeah, I can. Oh boy.
The second Pokemon
put a lot of work
movie
into
is
this
canon.
document.
No, it was back in the old days. We would have a full. God, fucking. That's the old one.
Yeah.
Okay. We would have a full list of stuff we were going to talk about. And then, avid Analog listeners know that we never have an agenda, because every time we do, I go, guys, we actually have an agenda this time, so we know what we're going to talk about. Like, I say that.
It doesn't matter. There's always too much to talk about anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
just so you know, like, when it came to, just for a point of comparison, when it came to, like, I am so strict about topics and things for our show. Like, I'll message everyone, like, a few days ahead of time. I'll be like, okay, I need to know your opinion on this, so that when you bring it up on the show, we don't get derailed. We're going to talk about this for 5 minutes. We're going to do this.
That sounds like my job. That sounds like what I do for a living.
So you do your timestamps in advance. So you're like, at 37:46, we're going to start talking about who the best player in the world is.
Close enough. And then sometimes if someone, like...
That's what we should do.
If someone like isn't confident in what they have to say, I'll be like, okay, here, let me help you make this argument. Like, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you're good to go.
That's literally what I do on my show. You're it's being a producer. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's sick. For a long time, Anok and I wouldn't invite each other onto the other shows because it was like a who will do it first type thing.
No, he has to do it first. I'm too nervous.
And then he DM'd me like 3 weeks ago and he was like, hey, so I'm going to be in New York this week. Would love to be on Analog. And I was like...
You guys had Pika on before me.
That was unintentional.
This is true. The minute I saw that, I was like, I can't let this happen.
That was so funny.
I can't let you guys bring Pika on and not me.
But yeah, so I was like, ugh. fine, I guess we'll have you on the show.
No, he loved it. He was so happy to have me. He was like, please come on my show.
My initial condition was that we could have you on the show and sit between us, but you couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
I would have been so down for that.
Would have been a real... He thought... He straight up messaged me today. He was like, when he said, what are we doing for the show? What's the agenda? He went, are we doing the thing where I sit between you and then I just give a bunch of corrections at the end?
So for the longest time, they've mentioned this before on previous episodes, but I used to send Zane a bunch of corrections or comments and be like, oh, I really like this point that you brought up, or I like this point that Rishi brought up, but this is where you guys were actually wrong. And I forget a lot of them. One of them was about play styles. That was my favorite one, where you were talking about different Peach players' play styles, and you mentioned a strength of Peach players.
We got into such a fucking argument
I was like, Zane, like, a playstyle isn't just like having your opponent mess up and just hitting.
Which I still
disagree about
because we talked about it.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
No, because I was telling you that wasn't a playstyle.
Yeah, I was like, that's not a playstyle. Yeah. That's just a strength.
You were talking about McCain.
Yes, of course I was. We could, of course I was. I still disagree. By the way, I think that having the other person mess up is not a playstyle, but there are certain players.
I personally love when I lose an interaction and my opponent messes up and I punish them. What a great playstyle I had.
Listen, McCain.
I actually intentionally screw up.
McCain and Zach, because he's the other one that I always bring up with this, and people always call me an idiot for this, but there's a reason why Zach's Fox Dittos... Well, for now he's really bad at the matchup. But before, when Zach used to win Fox Dittos, his Fox Dittos would always look really, really messy, and he would still win. And there's a reason for that. It's not just like a fucking random thing.
So it's funny you mentioned Sfat, because I've talked about this with the melee stats Fox expert Ambi Sinister a lot. One thing I noticed with Sfat that I think is like kind of cool the more I study him is that like he's sort of like he's the opposite of what you'd imagine for most Fox players. Like, he's a very smart decision maker that finds these like very macro solutions that require the least amount of moving parts.
And most Foxes are not smart decision makers.
Yeah, least amount of moving parts is a really good way to describe Zach.
Like the way he'll cover an opponent off stage, or the way he'll like control center stage is very like. It's not like super dash dance heavy, and it's not like him moving around on platforms really fast. He kind of just like holds his ground and will cover like a big wealth of options without moving that much. And more importantly, I think like having the way Ambi put it was the highest like window to succeed.
I also think he's one of the players who has gone through distinct playstyle shifts, maybe more than most other players just in general throughout his career, because he used to be a very, very dash dance heavy Fox, and if you asked him how he played, he said it was all about mixing up dash dance timings and making sure that the opponent was off kilter, and that he just liked having a dash dance that didn't look like a proper dash dance. Like, that's what he used to say, but I do think he's moved away from that more and more. I don't know.
You've played him in bracket before, so what has your experience been like, sort of assessing sort of which tree he fits into?
I mean, he just like knows which mix-ups he wants to play and where and on what part of the stage. He's one of the best Foxes at playing footsies with you. Like, he's not trying to rush you down and win like pressure mix-ups. It's like he's trying to make you whiff at a certain moment and then whiff punish you there.
That's it. I think Zach's amazing.
One of the reasons why I think he's an interesting player to look at for 2019 is because like throughout 2018, I feel like we saw so many rising stars. Like, people, I know that's kind of a vague term, but like
he fell.
But like well, I'll get to that. I think the 11 to 25 like group of players and around that is like very close in terms of who they can beat and who they can't.
Sure.
And again, I'll get to this with Sfat later. But when I looked at his records against players in his tier, like despite him sort of having a more quiet year than what you'd expect, I was actually really impressed by how well he did cumulatively as a whole. Like, he didn't win a tournament like Don't Park on the Grass. Like, he didn't win the Roast of Hugo. But just looking strictly at head-to-heads, like he almost always came out on top. Like his Smash Con, of course, was pretty bad. His Dome Park was very bad, like for his standards. But I was actually like pleasantly surprised. Like I had him ranked number 11 on my ballot, which I think for a lot
that's
of people,
where he's going to end up for sure.
Yeah, we talked about this after Summit, Zane, where we were talking about like the top 10 players basically, and we kind of agreed that Zach was in the next tier.
Yeah.
by himself.
Yeah, I would say that's...
Possibly with Johnny.
Yes, we said possibly with Johnny, and we were actually talking about Johnny sort of being below his tier. So, but now it's the opposite. So actually, Zach might end up at 12th.
Yeah, I think that's what people have
because
him,
Johnny's had such an incredible end of the year, but it's those two is 11 and 12 for sure.
Because it also depends on valuing a tournament victory over just like head-to-head spreads.
Yeah,
the value of winning 2 tournaments like Dome Park and Roast, especially like destroying Zane at Roast.
Yeah,
that was not close.
Well, so I forget who I was talking to about this. Was it Fendi? Maybe I think it was Fendi who I was talking to about this. How I think actually that it's not a full disagreement, but it's a pretty big disagreement with how the recent discussion about rankings should be conducted. Because so recently the rallying cry you always hear that people say and that they like decry other people for not heeding to is just look at the head-to-heads, don't look at the placings, you know?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And that is true, and but I think that we should now have moved to a place where we assume every panelist is doing that. The rankings have always been formulated, always have been, and still are, as if you put these players into a tournament, what order would they place in?
Or if you put these players in 100 tournaments on average,
in 100 tournaments on average, how would their results shake out? And so I know I'm not saying just average results, but I am saying I forget who it was that made me.
I think the point you're bringing up is especially salient when it comes to things like tournament victory. Like maybe the difference between 5th and even 9th place is not that much, and I obviously don't think you should just look at placings, and I think head-to-heads are more valuable. But when it comes to things like tournament victories, like that's where that's
what I was trying to say. Getting first or second at a tournament should be weighted more a lot of the time, to me, even if you were just lucky, even if the bracket was very similar to what you did to get 7th at another tournament.
So what are you valuing? Like, what specifically are you valuing that getting first or second kind of conveys?
The ability to perform in later stages of a bracket, which is something that only looking at head-to-heads doesn't take into account. It only takes into account matches in a vacuum, not where they happen in the bracket, and not what the mental stress of that also plays
That's
into.
kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, and something that I haven't really thought about that much.
I think it's a little tough to quantify, but one thing that semi-related topic that I do find interesting is seeing local trends versus how someone does like at a major versus someone.
Right, and well, you wanted to talk to Rishi about that because he overperforms at super majors, quote unquote overperforms. That's why I said quote unquote. That's why I said
dude, you're being like Mewtwo King Swedish at super majors, and then you're like, all right,
him beating Swedish is not him overperforming.
No, well, you
let's get that out of the way.
Swedish the last. You son Swedish at that. I forget. Was it Scarlet Classic?
Scarlet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've beaten him before, so that wasn't too surprising for me. But
it was actually I beat him at Genesis.
Yeah, 4, Genesis 4. I remember watching.
And then
that.
he beat me like the next 6 times.
Yeah.
And then Scarlet and Summit were the last 2 times we played.
You bodied him at Summit.
That was so obvious to me that was coming. Everyone talked
Swedish.
about it.
Swedish is actually one of my friends, but you got bodied by
We
Rishi.
talked about this on the show before, and we said sorry, James, when we said it. But the reason we said is that Rishi looked a lot more confident and a lot more solid in his losses than James did in his. Going into that,
so then
and also you have a pretty strong record against him beforehand. So I was pretty confident.
Then what happened with Pleba, man? What happened? It's a 2-8 matchup for Marth. I hate it.
Shut up. Shut
it's
the
like
fuck up.
It's like a
we'll
running.
Get to that. It's what happened with Pleba.
Okay,
what happened with Pleba?
So the way I felt like after that tournament is that my mistake was I was putting too much effort into being relaxed for that bracket. And that was my first tournament coming back out of after Big House, so I had mostly been like not focused on like the competitive skill set, if that makes sense. And like I felt like I didn't wake up early enough, which is something that happened to me a year before when I lost to Lint at Apollo, and I felt the exact same way where I was like something in my preparation for this tournament wasn't lining up, where I didn't wake up soon enough, and then in both tournaments I ended up like tearing through losers anyways.
So you didn't just get bullshitted by Sheik? Is what you're
So
saying?
he's good.
No,
Like,
no, I know who Pleva is. Like he's ranked.
Because see, Anok's
I hate Sheik so much.
Anok's thing coming out of this is that Sheik Marth is 8-2 for Sheik, and that's why he thinks he lost.
No, I mean, I have no interest in debating matchup ratios, but
it's all bullshit.
But like his punish game was on point, and
can't you just give in to the darkness?
No.
But you also
That's why he's a top 30 player.
Like there's a lot that goes into like why I lost that, and like I don't know what he was doing too. He could have been studying me, or he's just really good and no one knows about him. But
I think one of the reasons.
What can you say? Right?
Look, I'm not trying to. Like, I literally was just trying to say that. Get my 2-8 thing out of the way.
Yeah, okay, you said it. We're done.
There was no good faith or intent on my part.
No good faith.
There's zero.
There. I think the thing that makes that loss a bit more of a big deal is that and I remember when you lost, you were shook by it. You tweeted out some stuff after you lost. You're like, I haven't felt this way in a really long time.
Well, yeah, it was my only bad loss in like the entire year.
Yeah, exactly. But I think part of that is because you are a player, and I know this from talking to you before you go to a lot of tournaments, who is very aware of your preparation level and your own mental state going into events. Sure. And so a lot of the time you don't let placings that might be seen as not incredible shake you. So like, don't park on the grass. On the lower end of your performances, considering the talent who's there, for sure. Like, not a great Rishi tournament. But you were sick, and you were just been focusing on a new game, too.
Yeah.
So you were very, very cognizant going in that you were not going to be upset with how you played, probably.
Yeah, my goal was basically to play as well as I could in the circumstances I had. And, like, if I hadn't gotten sick the day of, like, maybe I would have done better. Mm-hmm. But regardless, like, I wasn't upset about it at the end of the day.
Right, and that goes the other way, too, where I know that you go to... certain tournaments come up and you go, I'm really going to grind for this one, and then it's really hard because I, like... to talk to you for a week because you are grinding the entire time.
Well, it's funny also with you because for the longest time, I think the common perception of you was the opposite. That Rishi, if you gave yourself enough time for a region, you would beat everyone. Like that's what you ruled MDVA for a while, and then you'd place like well at majors for a while, but like you never you got your first like really big win, I think against Meech King and Evo. Yeah. And then you kept having like really good super majors. So I guess I want to ask you now that I'm here, like what's that been like turning the perception of you around? Or is it more about like meeting your own standards of what you know you can achieve?
It's more the latter. So the way like last year kind of worked out for me, it was like a full year process. The way I see it, like it wasn't just something clicked in August. Like I put a lot of effort in the first half of the year into just teaching myself how to gauge my success by how well I'm playing, and to continuously like reinforce like the habits that lead to me playing well, and like I'm making the distinction between that and winning sets versus losing sets, because like now I have a much better capability to judge when I'm playing well and win or lose, and playing poorly and win or lose. So now my goal is like I'm gonna play as well as I can. And I've played well in sets that I've lost that I feel okay about, because it's like I actually did what I'm supposed to do in
like
this
your
set.
Zane set, for instance.
Yeah, like the Zane set, like the Mango set at Shine is another example that I think of. And then there are sets where I play badly, and I don't really think about the sets that I play badly and win, because it's just like whatever. But if I play badly and lose, it's like then I'm really taking a closer look at what led to that happening. So I felt like that way about my Pleba set. I felt that way about my set against Fiction at Big House.
Yeah, that was pretty...
and that was like... That in the moment, I was like, all right, this is how I was feeling then. Now I'm going to turn it around. And then that's when I had my sets against Lot and Zane. And there was like a very clear difference between how I was playing then.
It's the narrative that I keep building for you, because this is what I always do, and something I've relied upon more now that, like, for commentary, now that I don't have as much time to follow the scene, because for a while I think what my strength was as a commentator was that I was someone who followed the scene very actively and had for a long time, and could bring storylines into play of like, this player has been doing X, whatever. And in recent times I've commentated, I haven't been able to do that because I don't follow the scene as actively, like at all. So a lot of the time, what I want to think about with that is like, what's the ongoing storyline for this player? And so the thing that I always say about you, and I know it's a crutch and I lean on saying the same thing, but I always say that I think Rishi has some of the best mentality to make comebacks, and that's why we see these really big comebacks, really hype moments come with you against Zane almost and you against Laud. Because first of all, you have the mentality to make comebacks, and that applies to you shaking yourself into it when you get into losers. And then you also have the defensive tech to make stuff like that.
See, I would like never think of this. If I were this, maybe this is why you're commentating majors and I'm not. But I would be like, Rishi, good at hard matchups, good against hard opponents. Rishi sometimes loses to foxes that I assume.
Yeah. Like there's all
like
of
my
that
narrative
too.
would literally be, Rishi, why are you losing to Fox and beating Sheik and beating everyone else?
Fair.
No, that makes sense too, and that's something I talk about. But that's
why
stuff,
I'm never gonna be a commentator.
well, that stuff's so subject to change so quickly, and it's so subject to being wrong is the thing. Like
it could quickly, like the minute you beat someone, the minute you beat Sfat or your next major, or you beat like a line of foxes, people are gonna be like, oh, Rishi's got it.
Like, do you know what the formula for making yourself look like an idiot on commentary is? I can make any person look like an idiot on commentary.
Are you gonna mention the Jaxilla Zane Marth Ditto thing?
No, that was really bad though. I don't want to talk.
That was the first thing I thought about where someone took something out of context.
I don't want to.
I love Jack, but that was like the one example that I remember.
Well, he was also talking about Falcon, and that was that was
stats gone wrong.
That was no okay. I'm gonna give you a situation where if you put anyone in this situation, there's a huge chance they'll look like an idiot. Okay, you give them Mango versus an Ice Climbers, and you ask them to talk about how good Mango is at the matchup.
Okay.
Because if you do things in purely matchup terms like that, it doesn't manage to encompass the wide range of skill variation, matchup development, and people having different play styles. Well, people will say, Mango is so good at this matchup, look at what he's doing so well. And you can be totally right about that. He does some things in that matchup that are really good. Recent history has shown that he also is completely lost in it sometimes.
Well, that's why
But it's going to change on a dime. He's going to fucking sun, I don't know, random Ice Climbers 34 at the next major he goes
you should
to.
know his history in the matchup. You should know that like his what you're saying about his variance in that matchup and how he tends to do in it. You'd mention things like like in 2015 or around that time, so many people thought like because of his grand finals against Fly Amanita at Prestar was like, oh, you can't beat Mango in this matchup.
Right,
and then how the public perception of that
too was a huge part of it. Nintendo at Genesis 3.
Yep.
That was
he destroyed him there.
Was crazy.
Nintendo beat him later at Shine 2016.
Exactly.
And I'm so sad that set wasn't recorded.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm kind of happy it wasn't recorded. but like it is I remember sort of like the public shifting toward Mango is bad against Ice Climbers, and it was especially bad when Chu had that stretch of like 3 wins on him in a row. But
I'm just saying that is a function of talking about matchups as the primary thing in general, because people can be good at matchups or they can be bad at matchups, but the fluke win is always going to come, or the fluke loss is always going to come. And maybe it's the first one that's indicative of a change, but the range of skills and stuff is such that like talking about it in terms of matchups is a lot of the time, I think, a way to guarantee that you're leaving a chance open to look like an idiot. Sure. To just get the narrative of the match completely fucking wrong.
Yeah, if I ever somehow sell my soul enough to become a commentator and there's Marth Sheik on stream, just don't put me on.
Yeah. You and Fendi commentating Marth Sheik.
Dude, you should put me, Fendi, and Rishi and Blur on the next Zane versus Sfat set.
Zane versus Sfat.
I don't want to watch the next Zane versus Sfat. I was gonna say that anytime there's a Marth Sheik, we should just replace you with Spark. Spark's the only person I want to hear talking when there's a Sheik on the screen.
Oh my god, dude.
I'm gonna.
It's like F Delta him.
You and Spark. That was a great Zane impression. That's exactly what he sounds like.
I'm gonna drop just because we were talking about Sfat. I'm gonna call this back, and this is the. This is what I like, and anyone who knows me knows that like whenever he comes up, I always have to bring this up. And maybe it's a little mean of me. I was just talking nicely about him before, so I think it's fair to point out a weakness in his results. So Sfat is very good.
Is it that he loses to Zane? Because I think we see that one.
Well, it's not just that. Against the Big Six and Zane, he is a combined 0 and 26.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So,
and I just don't like get it. Because his records against everyone are so good.
I think
like it's just like 26 set. Like Rishi, you beat me. Like I think if you played 26 sets against like the Big Six and Zane,
yeah,
you would
I'm
take
1-2 against the gods last year.
I think you would take more than one out if you were given 26 chances.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think Sfat would normally too.
There's a couple thoughts I have on this. The first one is that of people in the 10 to 20 range, Zach and Johnny are probably the two people who have played against the gods, the top 6 the most, because they get to that point in bracket and were top level competitors for such a long time.
Yeah.
And so if Zach doesn't consistently change up his style, it like I always hate when people say players are figured out.
So are you suggesting that like
I don't think he is
the gods
figured
have
out.
more of a download on Zach and Johnny
Sort
than
of,
they would on the
sort of.
other?
I think that a lot of like I think when M2K
I
played
can see
you,
that being true.
Because I think when M2K played you, he went for a game plan that was not at all ready for the type of marth that you are and for the type of way that you play both of those matchups.
Let's not praise him too
No.
much. but yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
But they know what game plan they can start with against
Zach.
And especially like in something like best of 3, like M2K gets off to a horrible start and it's just like, oh god, what's going to happen? You know, I'm just speaking in hypotheticals here.
I mean, to that effect, like Mewtwo King is one of the worst gods because he has too many avenues that he can go down, and many of them have many weaknesses.
You mean like the character switching or like picking a random stage,
as opposed to any of the other gods?
Yeah, as opposed to H-Box, who's the complete
who's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. Is I think that Zach. The only reason Johnny can even compete is in that level is because he's in SoCal and he plays with Mango all the time, and he just goes to a lot of shit. But in terms of like who has been at that peak level of competition for the longest, and with this, it's Zach. So I think that they're maybe a little bit more familiar with him. The second thing is that Zach is one of the players most intimately aware of his own mental game and trying to fix his mental game.
Yeah.
And I don't know how successful he's been at that, but it's something he thinks about all the time. And when it was clear that he had dropped out of the top 10, basically, I did an interview with him about this at EVO. He said, oh God, now the pressure's off. And maybe now it means I can perform again and I can start beating Mango again, that sort of stuff. Which is such a Zach thing to say, and it also feels like such a Zach thing to get to think that and then have it actually not be the solution.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know him probably better than me, so I don't want to like say sort of what his mental approach is, but it just baffles me because it's not like he's bad against like other people. Like he won that tournament over Amsa earlier last year. He does well against I know SJ just got recently announced as number 1 in SoCal, but he still did really well against him for the whole year. Like it's just like having such a big disparity. Like it's sort of. I just wonder what his 2019 will look like, because I think because if you ask me if he'd play 10 more sets, I think he will take 1 or 2, right? Like that's sort of like how my mind, like that's sort of how I like see his perceived skill tier. But the results, like the 0-26, just doesn't fit that at all.
Okay, here's another thing. I want you guys to imagine you're Sfat, right? And you're practicing for Genesis. What should be your priority to practice?
Ultimate.
What would be the most?
Like I don't
if you could
say
change one thing that happens in bracket for Sfat that would make his bracket better, what would it be?
Lose a 1 round before fighting Zane.
Okay, right. Or alternatively,
literally bracket, you see Zane. But the thing is, but Zane is beating him in like losers. That's the thing. Like Sfat's making these runs and just getting 9.
My point is that what do you think Zach has put the most time into for the past 6 months? I'm pretty sure it's been, how do I beat this motherfucker?
Think so.
Who keeps beating me at every tournament.
He has been playing Kevin, I'm pretty sure.
Right. So I'm guessing if you think about where Zach's mental energy has gone, a lot of it has been, how do I not have an 0-11 record against this fucking kid who plays the same character I played against my entire fucking life?
Well, even his friend is kind of caught it. Like PP was 3-1 on it. Even I know.
Right. So the fact that Zach has been, that is in terms of the energy Zach has the time he has to think about beating top 6 players,
Because even Spud beat
beating
him
top
too.
10
Oh my God,
players,
I
yeah,
forgot.
he's not good against Marth anymore. But in
What
terms of the
happened?
energy,
Okay, I don't know about that.
This guy, no, this guy.
I wouldn't put my
He
money on.
has a single non-Zayn, non-Mewtwo King Marth loss last year.
No, he lost to Kevin too.
Spud.
I was talking about Spud. I guess he did lose to Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on.
You're beating him next time you guys play.
No,
You
but
got
that's
it.
the problem is he needs to work on his Fox matchup.
Well, we'll see. I did work on my Fox matchup quite a bit towards the winter months of the end of last year. Even in like August, I just wasn't really fighting that many Foxes.
Yeah.
I fought Fiction twice.
And there's no locals for you to play against one of the best Marths against Fox in the nation.
Fox against Marth.
Fox against Marth, I mean. Yeah.
Are you talking about Aziz or Cody?
Cody.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
No, I'm not. Although
Aziz is good in that
Aziz-
matchup, too.
You guys
If
went
you-
like back forth during the year, right? You and Cody.
I think we're like 2-2.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
if you want to see something disgusting, watch Aziz play friendlies against someone at some tournament before bracket ever starts. God, I remember I went to one of the Nebs tournaments that's in an art gallery. What do we call those? The ones
Super smashed, cornered out.
No, okay, yeah. Anyways,
It's some combination.
it was
of those
Aziz. Aziz was playing against Moon and just like consistently 3-stocking him like 10 games in a row.
Friendlies?
Oh my god!
Because Moon was giving him kind of like a tough time.
He
for the
lost.
last
He
few
got.
years.
He lost to Moon in that same tournament. I didn't see him drop a single game in friendlies, and then he lost to him at that tournament.
Sorry, because he beat Moon at that. There was some tri-state tourney to close the year. I'm forgetting its name right now. But he beat him in Swedish at that tournament.
Okay, tell us about this tournament that supposedly happened over the weekend in Tri-State that we
Tri-State?
think you're making up.
Scorpius 2019.
Guys, we really have not followed Melee.
What do
at
I
all.
remember?
Yeah, I've been watching.
Yeah, why are you guys
Ultimate-
podcasting on
been
Melee?
watching
Podcast
Ultimate
about
tournaments.
Ultimate.
Because the fans want it, and you're here. We can't podcast about Ultimate when you're here.
I played Ultimate for a little bit and just complained about World of Light
Okay,
being too
tell us
long.
about Scorpius.
What
Fill us
do I
in.
remember? Hax got first. He lost to a nice Climbers player early. Aklo, a Long Island hidden bot. If you know Foxy Grandpa, I think Aklo is his brother or something.
Oh.
He plays Fox and Marth. He's like pretty solid. He's
He
like
got second.
yeah, he got second. I forgot.
So
who got
who did he beat?
third.
He beat the Ice Climbers, and Flex got third.
Did he? Yeah,
Flex
sure.
has to have gotten third.
It was like
because
Flex
Nico
getting-
got fourth.
Yeah,
and
it was
Nico
Flex
got
getting third and Nico getting fourth. Darktooth, he
Got
lost to
ninth.
Nico and DQ'd out at 9th, I think.
This
Oh,
is
he
not a
forfeited.
real tournament.
Well, how did 42nd do? I forget. I think he got like 5th or something. I forget.
42nd, your
I forget.
pick for number 60 on the PGR.
42nd sick, dude. If you guys want to know why I ranked him 60, you can check out I think it was my last week's edition of Monday Morning Marth.
Didn't Poi Pounders happen too? On
Yeah,
Yeah.
Boy Pound has having S2J won.
Over Lucky.
Lucky
With
and
a reset, right?
yeah,
Lucky
Yeah,
reset,
Lucky
yeah.
reset him. The rest of the field was like all Hawaii and Pacific Northwest.
I was surprised at how few people were there because I remember last year that tournament was stacked
Do you know why few people were there?
because they were playing Ultimate.
Yeah, because last year it was partially stacked because Hugo advertised for it a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Because Hugo was going, and he's one of the bigger influencers in Melee and Smash in general.
Yeah.
But Hugo's practicing Ultimate.
One of the things, sort of just on the topic, like you guys talk about not following Melee, and for a while, and I know you guys are like a quarter joking about that, but I think one thing that is kind of interesting that in terms of like my column, because I watch tournaments every weekend and stuff. One of the things I've been kind of doing that I'm trying not to stay away, or that I'm trying to stay away from, is like I don't want to talk too much about like ranking, sort of where ranks will happen, just because I think this is gonna sound weird coming from me, but I am like very strangely sort of wearisome of ranking culture. So like for a lot of what I've been writing, I've been trying to predict things for 2019. Like, oh, here are like some players that you might not know about to look
Yeah.
out for. Here's some
I
regions.
agree with you on
That's
that.
a great idea.
Because I just feel like I don't want to say the talent pool is too high, but I think in terms of like meaningful exposure, there's not a lot that's often given to players.
Talking about rank only exposes like a very small portion of what's actually happening.
And it sounds weird coming from me because my whole thing is like rankings, like watching.
No, yeah, I like
locals and stuff,
revamped
but-
how New York does their power rankings, and I
Oh my fucking god.
what
The old days of New York power rankings were something.
Dude, you should see New York ballots in like 2013 where they would like angrily send letters and be like, I beat DJ's Mario at a local, so I should be top 50.
Dude, fucking
things like that in 2013 was
New York,
so bad.
When I moved to New York in 2013, New York was still doing power rankings, and they did this for a long time, solely based on GAR PR.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
So bad.
Like, I'm interested in like the methodology behind and like the philosophy behind how we do rankings. But in my personal experience, like the most use I get out of a ranking is to like tell people who don't know anything about Smash what my rank is.
Well, that's like, what it's an exposure list, right?
Yeah.
The point of the ranking system, like it should be fair, and obviously like there's value in it, but like its ultimate use to the community is for exposure and giving a resource for newcomers to it.
And for top players to try and bring other organizations and teams into the scene, saying like, this is my rank. And when I was ranked #1 in New York, like people outside of the Smash circle think that's cool.
Yeah,
like that's how they gauge what I'm doing. Like but people in the Smash community know that there's like, it's not just like, oh, I'm undisputed best player in the region. Like there's a story, you know.
And that stuff matters a lot to sponsors. Like people don't realize sponsors look at things like top 25 and top 50. Like it might be easy to like
go down the list. As a free agent,
dismissing player concerns like, oh, you're complaining you're not top 50 when you're 52nd. Like who cares?
No, it's huge.
The thing is for sponsors, like they're not looking that
really
deep.
Big. But at this point, they're not looking to pick people up who are top 50 either. People need to realize that.
That's a whole other can of worms.
Let's talk about that in a sec. My camera's about to die, so coming up, we'll talk more about some sponsor stuff, and let's get into predictions, since I think that is a healthy way to look at stuff. So let's talk about what we think is coming for the new year of our favorite non-Smash Party game, Melee, in 2019, after the break.
You already broke the like meme limit rule. You mentioned it like twice before the show, and you mentioned it twice on the show.
It was in the show. I'm at the limit.
Yeah, we're
at the limit.
When I set the limit of
it's just for the show.
Yes, in the show.
Yes. Oh, but outside the show, you guys are all.
It's all he talks about. Have you seen his Twitter? God, more after the break.
Don't remind me.
Follow me at Rishi SSP.
Hello, dear listeners. It's been a while. I missed you guys a lot. Sorry we've been gone so long. This whole message is actually going to be a lot of sorries. One, sorry for being gone for 4 weeks. We've been really, really busy. As I'm sure you guys know, we've been saying it everywhere, but still, sorry. It's been sad not recording every week. Two, sorry that the episode is late. That also has to do with the busy thing. Sorry that the camera looks really shitty. It's been a while, didn't put the settings correctly and was just sort of eager to record, so I know that's not great, but hey, it's not like there's that much to see anyways. We just know you guys like to watch on YouTube and have something to keep your eyes busy. Sorry that the camera cuts out, so you won't have anything to keep your eyes busy. Hasn't happened yet, but trust me, it will. But that's an analog classic, so you guys are used to that. And sorry about the scuffed audio. That one I really am sorry about. I didn't really have that's actually the one where I, considered it going in, but I don't really have a recording setup for 3 people with my lavalier mics, because my recorder only does 2. I have one that plugs into a smartphone, but then my phone will die, and that's a whole thing. And yeah, I don't know. I'll figure it out, but hopefully it's not too bad. First course of action for me is to actually buy an AC adapter for my camera so that I don't need to rely on its battery life, which seems to have just become completely unreliable. I hope you guys are enjoying the episode. We did have a lot of fun recording it. It was a lot of fun being back. That was all great. Yeah, good times were had by all. And I hope you guys are enjoying Anoke. It's actually been fun to get him on the episode. So that's cool. Yeah, going forward, I don't know, guys. We'll try and have another patron chat sometime soon. Might be after Genesis. I know we've fallen behind on those as the podcast sort of went on hiatus, but it was a nice, refreshing break, and I think we've come back with a lot of energy, so that'll be fun. Genesis will be fun, like I say in the episode. I put together the commentary roster for that, so that was really fun. I don't really want to talk about it on the show just yet, since the event hasn't happened, but I will maybe after the show, after Genesis happens. We'll see. You guys can DM me if you have any specific questions. Yeah, join our Discord. be active, talk in there. Analog, there's a link for it in our Twitter. And yeah, give us a like and a subscribe, I guess, if you're on YouTube. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done this. Missed you guys. Glad to be back. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Okay, bye.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the break. Welcome back to the Save Melee Stats podcast, where we have to bring on their ringleader just to save their podcast.
Sick.
That's funny. That was good. That was really good. He said
That's like a 3 out of 10. You should have put that on your Twitter. It would have been fitting. I'm so mad, dude. I'm so mad.
All this is helping you out. Right? Follow Melee Stats on Twitter. Go to their website.
Oh my
Check out Monday Morning Marth.
Monday Morning Marth is one of my favorite pieces.
You guys love Monday Morning Marth. Don't even lie.
I do.
Yeah.
People
really
talk about like Blur being the ultimate Marth main or Fendi being the ultimate Marth main. People who follow the scene really
who
know
says
that.
Fendi's the ultimate?
Fendi is.
Wait, let's go on that. He's not at all.
Dude, I'm not talking about in game. It's just like
in personality, he's not a Marth main.
Fendi is such a Marth main, dude.
No.
Come on.
Like he sort of is, but he's not. You two, I both think of as Marth mains in personality. And
I think we're opposite sides of the same coin.
Yes, we've talked.
It makes sense that you think of me as a Marth main in personality because I'm one of the quintessential Marth mains. I define what personality of a Marth main looks like.
I think you're like the.
I don't think that's
so.
true.
There's two types of.
As I was saying, I was like, I might not actually agree with that.
There's two types of Marth mains. There's like the Marth
dash
mains.
back and dash forward.
Sort of. Rishi is like the Marth main, like writing a notebook, studying the game, like thinking thoughtfully. I'm like the Unga Bunga. You know, like my net play name for the longest time was Unga Bunga Caveman.
Are you serious?
So what I would do is I would play someone and I would just write Unga and Bunga, and then like depending on if I beat them or lost to them, like if I beat them, I would write like Unga Bunga and then write an asterisk like and imitate whatever stupid habit they had in game.
This is too much for me.
Just, I had like a weird sort of sadistic pleasure with.
So you must have beaten Kalindi's Smurf at one point, and that's where his
no, that'd be so funny if that happened. No chance.
I think people have a very intrinsic knowledge of what Marth mains are, aside from ever knowing you.
But some Marth mains, they accept the darkness, and others go the PPMD
and I think
type
both of you
route.
have accepted the darkness in very different ways.
No, I think he went the other way though. He's like thoughtful and like
he's the Vino Marth. There's a clip of when Vino was playing. Who was it? What Samus player was it? Playing some Samus.
See, this is my game. Now we're talking about Marth. It's so
Vino played some Samus at Genesis 3. I forget who, and he just gets like fucking destroyed the first game on FD, and then he spends like 3 minutes. Oh, it was Esam. He spends 3 minutes writing in a notebook, like trying to figure out what to do. And Esam's just sitting there being Esam, sitting the way he does. He sits a little hunched over like this, and he just looks around. He's like.
Yeah.
And then he starts writing in his own fake pocket notebook.
Right.
And Andrew has no idea that it's going on next to him. He comes in. That's the one type of Marth main.
I got into a really like funny like little like pretend argument with Vino because as you know from knowing me, I hate the Marth Ditto a lot. It's my worst matchup. Mm-hmm. Like I'm super. All my bad losses are in it and everything. So Vino was like telling me like, no, it's the sickest matchup. He's like, you doc kids just want to 0 to death people like every time you win an opening. No, you have to actually play neutral and you have to play mix ups and stuff. And I was like, dude, no, it's a stupid matchup of mix ups. You just randomly guess. And he's like, no, it's not randomly guessing. He was explaining to me all these like super obscure 50-50s. He's like, sure. I studied Mutakings like.
Listen, Vino is the type of player where by playing him, I think what Fiction said is true. I know all about Vino's sex life just by playing.
Oh boy!
But really, he does embody that in his play. You'll play against him, and you'll be like, "What the fuck is he doing?" Like when I played Vino for the first time when he came back from Germany because he stayed there for a really long time. Mm-hmm. I was just trying to approach, and he would fucking dash back pivot jab me out of the air. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? This is so stupid. He's like, yeah, man, it's really good against Falco. And I'm like, It is, but why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Zane, my favorite time playing with you, other than my least favorite time being the 2 net play sets where I couldn't, my ego couldn't handle the losing, was when we were playing at Shine.
Jealous 5,000.
Yeah, Jealous 5,000 or
What's
something.
his net play name?
That's actually a great.
It was before Unga Bunga Cave. It was before Unga Bunga Caveman. So when we played at Shine,
Yeah.
I don't think you were playing very well that night. So you started commentating to yourself while you were playing. And there was one particular moment. It was like last stock or something. It was like after an hour of
Is
just
this why
like.
you told me that you're gonna start commentating yourself playing more?
No, that was from something different.
I was the origin.
No, you were not. You were not. It
I
was
totally
from.
was.
It was from when
I
I
know
was. It was from when I tried to stream Melee. Maybe.
Oh
a year ago.
that's what it was. That's what it was.
I tried to stream Melee like maybe 8 months ago, and you have to talk while you're playing, and I noticed that I was playing worse, but I was also actively realizing the bad things I did.
Right.
Anyways, yes, go on.
And then I hit you with like some really screwed up Marth hitbox, and you were just like, I'm done for the day. It was like the one where you're like, you hit forward smash, but it sends you the opposite way, and Zane just goes flying. You're at like 70% or something.
I was at 70%, and I just died from it.
And the
It's
best thing is I was down like 1 stock to 3. I was at high percent. I took Zane's first stock at like 5% or something, and I go, watch, I'm gonna win this game.
Fuck off.
And Zane was like, there's no chance.
All
I'm
right.
just gonna laser you.
Really happy this has happened. What are your predictions for 2019 in Melee?
What a segue. Okay, well, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk top 50? Do you want to talk majors, non-top 100 players?
Okay, no, give me the most.
I want to talk about the landscape.
Okay.
I want to talk about how Ultimate being on the scene will or won't change.
That's
things.
cool. Yeah. Okay. You talk about that. Give us your prediction.
Oh, no.
Give us your prediction.
I don't know if I have one.
Jesus.
Okay. I'll
Okay. Here's a jumping off point.
Sure.
Genesis 6 Ultimate Registrants is the highest registrants for any non-Evo tournament ever. For
Yes.
Smash. It's
Yeah.
it's 1995.
That's
Yeah.
a pretty good sign.
I know because it's my birth year. 1995 entrance. Melee entrance went down about like 300 as they did last year too.
Yeah.
Is that a trend for Melee versus Ultimate that we're gonna see continue?
Not necessarily. I think we saw something similar when Smash 4 came out.
Sort of.
Sort of, right? Like the way I see it is any new Smash game or iteration of Smash that brings in a lot of people is good for Melee in the long term. Because you get more people exposed to Melee, and even if they're not the people who are entering Melee tournaments and competing on the regular, they're at least being exposed to the personalities and in some form start keeping up with the narratives.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with that. My sort of like my instinct makes me worry a little bit just for Melee, but historically sequels typically bring greater Smash turnout, and over time, if not directly increasing Melee's player attendance or like tournament attendance,
At least
base.
like viewership, right?
Yeah, for viewership does fall into it's. I'm a little uncomfortable commenting on viewership just because I'm not sure of its impact on the base, but like I think what you're saying about it bringing more people to Smash and potentially Melee, like I don't think it detracts from Melee, if that makes any sense.
I agree with you, but I do want to fact check you on something. You said historically sequels bring higher Smash attendance. That's just blatantly false. There's no track record to that. Smash 4 brought higher Melee.
Smash 4, right?
Smash 4 brought higher Melee attendance.
Right.
Brawl did not.
I'm saying like at majors. I wasn't doing at locals. Obviously, the Brawl used to have, like Tri-State used to have the triple digit locals that were. If you look in Melee history, the Tri-State Brawl locals.
Pre-Smash 4 is not relevant.
Right, but
I'm talking about in terms of major.
You just want to
attendance.
point out that he's wrong.
Sequels,
Which he is.
Sequels do not necessarily.
In terms of major attendance, they actually went upwards after Brawl went out. In locals attendance, yes, I would not be foolish enough to say something like, "Oh, Brawl brought more people than Melee." You know, there was a community split.
They went up
really
and then they
time.
went down. But yes, I agree. In any case, Smash 4 is our model of a sequel for
it out at Pound 4. Look,
Yes.
I wrote a book on this, so I feel like I would know more about this than.
That's true.
Well, I think you were in the scene back then.
Oh, were you at Pound 4?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, I was at Pound 4.
I think you would know. I think you would know from the personal experience, but I can tell you in terms of major attendance, like Like Genesis still had a lot
That
of
was your
people
first
that go
tournament,
to it.
right?
Me?
No, wasn't one of the pounds your first major?
No, my first tournament was Bomb 4.
Oh, right.
My first major was Pound 2.
You're a Luigi main for some time.
For a long time.
I remember seeing you in a Luigi main thread and being like, what? Rishi, what are you doing here?
I like 2 or 3 of the sticky threads are mine. On Luigi.
Here's
That's why I was so confused. I was like, what?
Here's what I'm gonna say about attendance. I think attendance will continue to go down for Melee, but viewership will stay the same.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know where it would I don't know what the floor is
For attendance,
Yeah.
I think we're pretty close to it. It maybe a little bit.
Like Brawl also
less.
brought the Melee community people like Juggle Guy and others. Juggle Guy, obviously, that's just one person. That's one person who had a really big impact on the development of the community. When I'm saying that Brawl brings in like more perspective Melee players, I don't mean in terms of local attendance. I'm not naive enough to think that like Ultimate will suddenly start bringing, like I remember the New Game Plus locals back in the day in Boston used to get like 120 or 130 people. But I do think it helps like the Smash major entrant base. I guess I should have clarified on that. But I don't think I'm wrong in terms of mentioning how Brawl had an impact on Smash majors.
Here's something I want to talk about.
I think it did help.
This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I still haven't come up with a satisfactory answer to. What is it about Melee that makes it so that the level of new players goes up as skilled? Like, it's people still, in terms of relative skill, even though it's so much higher, continue to come in at the same relative skill. You know what I mean? Where you have someone who now, after a couple months of playing, can do stuff that people couldn't have done.
Oh, because of what they're seeing. It's like...
But it's not something that holds true to other games. Can you imagine telling someone to start League of Legends now? It'd be completely... Like, it would be so fucking hard.
Sorry, I'm not sure how to interpret your question. You mean like what makes...
He means like...
Hax's thing about kids can multi-shine these days before they learn how to shuffle. Why is it that as our baseline for skill at Melee continues to go up, new players continue to hit that baseline?
He's saying like a new player today or in 2018 is a lot better than a new player was in 2013.
Yeah. They say 24 for a second, like 2004. I was gonna be like, yeah.
In 20. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a combination of a lot. It's like the appeal of the game, who it brings, and I think there's just so many resources for it today. Like you can, and maybe it's the game itself. I'm sure you would be able to comment.
You are right
on
though, Zane, about like there are a lot of resources for League of Legends too.
And I do think someone could get good at League just starting playing. It just doesn't happen. If you look at every pro who's new in League of Legends right now, is just becoming a pro right now. They've been playing for 6 or 7 years.
How about this? How about
almost everyone?
How about Melee might be a more intuitive game than League of Legends?
I agree with that.
Where it's like if you
I haven't played League, so I wouldn't be able to
if you're able to see what top level looks like, it just like gives you a higher skill from the start, like from the get-go. And you kind of see that with sports too, where like records remain unbroken for a long time, and then one person breaks the record and it gets broken multiple times. So it could be something like that.
So you mean like someone sort of figuring out one element that's very important in the game, and that's sort of becoming more common knowledge? Or one area
that
of the
could
game
play into it.
It's that the things that are figured out are easy to see and then
you immediately
digest and internalize, whereas the advances in League of Legends are things that you have to
do calculations
learn.
Like how much damage this does.
It's not even that. It's just like you have to actively learn. It's more abstract. It's abstracted like, how do I push the map? How does stuff work in this way? What are interactions?
A lot of it is behind the engine of the game, whereas Melee, it's like you can see it, and I can play that through in my head, just feeling it out because of like I guess the intuitive.
That makes sense. I guess that's part of what makes, because I think it's true of fighting games in general, where someone can pick it up.
For sure.
So maybe that's just something that's really cool about fighting games.
I'm sure you guys will get a lot of people who will inevitably get mad at, even though you guys are making pretty innocuous game comparisons.
No, our followers are pretty much melee elitists.
Yeah. Oh, they are. Okay, so they'll all be in your camp.
Shout out
No,
Steven.
it's not even a melee elitist thing. It's just like, I love League of Legends, but
wait, really? You guys talked about DBFC for like 30 minutes on one of your old podcasts.
Yeah, melee elitists know how to respect DBFZ.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sure. No, I love League of Legends, and I've been playing it for, God, too long now. Wow, it's been a really long time. But I've been playing League for so long. But I just cannot imagine introducing someone to League of Legends right now. I mean, there's other stuff too. It's the level up requirement and the fact that champions have, like, champions have to be unlocked. There's a lot that obviously contributes to this.
Yeah.
But it's just, it still feels different. That's basically what I can say.
You have to commit quite a bit to start playing League.
Yeah.
Melee, it's like you pick up a controller.
Well, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I literally don't play other games other than Melee.
That was actually something I got really sad about today.
I saw you tweet that.
Yeah, because so on the show on Cheddar, we're doing a thing where every week me and one of the other co-hosts will play a game against each other, and then the winner will play someone from Twitch chat the next day. So we played DB Fighters, which I've played like twice before in my life. I have like, I can play Street Fighter, but I've only ever spectated Marvel, and which is the closest game to DB Fighters, and I only ever spectate DB Fighters. I've barely touched the game ever before, and so I got fucking whooped, and I knew I was gonna get whooped going in, but I just thought about it. I'm like, I cover esports and competitive gaming for a living. How many games can I say I'm passable at? And it's like Melee, League, Overwatch. That's pretty much it. Like, I can sort of I've never played Street Fighter 5. I played a decent amount of 4, but I've just never touched 5. I just haven't had time because I've been so busy covering Melee and League of Legends for the past 4 years.
I used to be a very good Rock Band player. But I did Rock Band vocals. So I literally just hummed into
the mic, to get the pitch right.
Yeah. I was I think I was top 20 in the Red Hot Chili Peppers expert vocals leaderboards, because they had the Blood Sugar Sex Magic or something. I forget which album out in Rock Band, and I remember grinding that.
Danny California. That was a big song back in the Rock Band days.
Well, that wasn't on Blood Sugar Sex Magic, but yes.
But it was a big
yes, it was a big
song in the Rock Band days.
And I loved Rock Band a lot. And then my dad caught me singing with a microphone in my shirt and playing the fake guitar at the same time. And he was never more disappointed.
That's really funny.
I just remember him looking at me and being like, no, why are you doing this? Why aren't you playing this with your friends?
Okay. So Rishi brought up the landscape. I want to hear from you players that you think will make big jumps in 2019.
Okay, so we could sort of like go up and down the East Coast or go through different regions, but in New England, he just got funded to go to Genesis 6.
Joy Boy.
I think Joy Boy is I think he's particularly very good because his I guess from the eye test standpoint, I think his defense is really strong. Like, he doesn't fall for like really typical like level 1 traps that opponents will set into him.
And I'll sign off on Joy Boy too, having played him here and there.
He like practices his ledge decks. It sounds really basic, but like that kind of stuff adds up over time. Again, to just kind of keep the Northeast theme, and I think Icies is another really strong player from Connecticut. He usually plays in New York more, but he notably he beat Captain Smuckers and got 65th at Genesis 5 last year. I think Icies is really set.
Why do you think this will be a year that he breaks out? Because I agree, Icies is a very underrated player, but I don't see a ton of reason that now would be the time that he'll really make a big jump.
I think the thing with players like Icies, like, not top 100, but like very strong regional players. Like I think with Icies in particular is like he doesn't have like he's just kind of good at everything. And when you have a really good baseline, like you're typically not going to lose to that many people quote unquote worse than you. And like if you keep playing enough to like really develop your strengths, like you start taking really big wins, and I see like I know Captain Smucker's is like very hard to predict and sort of all over the board, but like beating someone like him is still a really strong sign. And he began 2018 really strong by getting 65th at Genesis 5, which I know that's just a placing, but he beat Silent Spectre, who I think many people would have had beating IC.
So you're thinking about like virtual unknown players who are going to break into the possibility of being in the top 100.
I'm trying not to think of people who have already been ranked. Like I think Zoso is another really strong player, but he's been ranked before. So when I was talking to you about like mentioning players to look out for, I mainly wanted to focus on people who either weren't nominees or people that I don't think were off the top of my head were ranked or like ever like brought up.
Who else?
So that's the Northeast. I think in MTVA, this will be your territory, so you can tell me what you think of these players.
Sure.
I think Coolheim is really solid. I think Polish is another really, really strong player.
Yeah.
The first time
Polish is a big one for me.
I played him on net play and was pretty impressed. And then I saw he beat Hugs at Short Hops.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was Short Hops. He does very well in region. I just think he's super solid. I think Bob Bomb's another one of those guys.
I was waiting for that one.
I think Bob Bomb is hella
he's just
good.
sort of consistent.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that because at Pound, Wheat, shout out to Wheat, another Melee Stats member. He's the guy that does all the head-to-head data tracking for us. Wheat, when we were at Pound together, one of the things we mentioned looking at bracket, Wheat looks at me and I'm like, am I crazy or is Bob-Omb going to beat Chew? And Wheat's like, dude, I think Bob-Omb's going to beat Chew.
Yeah.
And then it happens and everyone is freaking out on like Twitter. Everyone at the venue is like super thrilled with it because it's like all Bob-Omb's friends and stuff, right?
That's it.
And I look at Wheat and I was like, dude, I texted Wheat because I don't even think I was there the day that I was there for pools. And then I left the next day. But I texted Wheat or messaged him. I was like, dude, we were right. Bob-Omb beat Chew.
Yeah, he actually tweeted something yesterday about how entering the cave last night was like his first tournament in like three or more months.
A lot of these guys, it's tough because like to be ranked 100 or 90, like sometimes activity just matters a lot.
It
and
totally
out
does,
of and out of game circumstances can lead to either a lot.
I think
or
his
less
was
activity.
more of like a mentality thing. Like he may have wanted to take a break from the pressure of competing. I don't know the full story because I know he lives like really close to the cave, so it's usually not an issue for him to go and enter. But yeah, Coolheim is someone who has already started getting some wins here and there. And Polish is someone that I had faith in pretty early on because you can just see when you watch him play, like you can tell he's good. And him switching to Peach I thought was a good idea, especially because I always said he played like my Peach, and my Peach is sick. So that's all I gotta say about those guys.
For other people that I think you would know, Ricky from Connecticut I think is also super solid, and
Ricky's solid.
I think Thumbs is people don't know about Thumbs.
Thumbs is the Peach, right?
I
played
Peach
Thumbs
and Falco.
at Shine 2017, and I thought Thumbs was pretty impressive.
Yeah, Thumbs actually for the longest time, he had a very big winning streak on Lint, who now goes by Lint God, but he had a really long winning streak on Lint, and Lint's kind of like brought it a little closer with him to like more competitive, but Thumbs I think like given enough, like if he again a lot of these guys again like if they went to a lot more we would know for sure.
Sure.
But it's always hard. I'm mainly just naming people.
Okay, let's keep going. Anyone in Texas, South?
I think S2J is pretty good. I'm trying to think more I was gonna go down the East Coast.
Okay,
but
keep going.
If he had enough opportunities, I think if he had like a good Fox bracket, I think Snowy could probably get a few big wins.
Okay, but do you think Snowy is gonna break out this year? Like this is like Snowy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about like breaking out, but I don't know. Like maybe if he beats a few like top like borderline top 100 Fox players or something.
So I don't know too much about Snowy's like competitive history, but at this point I think
he's the best in San Antonio, I think, and he's like much
that
worse
wasn't me
in other
asking
matches.
for his whole history.
Dude, look, he's talking to me about players, I think. What were you gonna say then?
I was gonna say like
about a player whose history you don't know.
Well,
no
yeah. So something I noticed just going through the results from last year is that there's a lot of players shifting tiers, like more so than usual. And I think the people who are going to be like solidifying themselves in their tiers are the ones who are really focusing on how to perform in tournaments as opposed to just playing good people all the time, because I think that is what gets people wins here and there. But to actually solidify yourself in a higher tier of players, like, it requires a significantly greater deal of work.
And you know what? To that point, Snowy might actually be an okay pick because he just founded Prometheus and he seems pretty dedicated to like taking Melee seriously.
So is that like an endeavor for him to be a team owner or to?
No, he's a player too. He puts his results in every Prometheus tweet too.
Okay, gotcha.
So, yeah.
Another guy I think is really good from SoCal is Mega Xmas.
Yeah.
I don't think he made the ballot this year, but I think if he went out to
I was waiting for you to
a lot
say
more,
Mega Xmas.
he would do really well.
He just needs major experience.
And I think in Arizona, like he seems again a lot better against Fox, Falco, and like fast fallers than his other matchups. Although he's not like bad in them. I think John Wick could probably make a pretty good big splash.
John Wick's a good one. Yeah. I think in NorCal, Azel is someone to watch out for.
Azel is a nominee for this year, and I think he might have made my list, but I forget. But he's very good.
He's very good and very, very young.
To play that top level of teams is not easy.
No,
it doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, he also has and that's the other one. Going away from names who like aren't who haven't been nominated before, but who are just going to have huge jumps this year. I think Rocky is a very obvious contender.
Can I mention something funny with Rocky?
Sure.
So someone on our balloters, like we all believe it or not, we all watch Melee. So we have a difference between like how we rank players and how we see them on the eye test. Mm-hmm. So like Rocky is one of those guys that like we really for the longest time in the eye test are like, dude, this guy is legit. Like not only did he beat Sfat, like every time we watch him, he just looks great. He has like a really strong neutral game, very like kind of a do it all Falco. Then suddenly one of us, KB, one of the balloters, he was like, dude, I have Rocky really high. I won't spoil it, but I looked at his list. I was like, dude, you're crazy. Like, there's no way Rocky should be that high. Like, he does like, how does he have any results like compared to like the like XYZ players? And I saw it, and I already have like Rocky in my perceived head as like, oh, like this guy's pretty good. Mm-hmm. But like maybe if he had more activity, he would be ranked higher. Then I like saw his sets. Then I looked through his results at like major tournaments or like regional tournaments and higher. This guy like. Very rarely does he lose to like quote unquote like worse players. Like he is very consistent, like getting big wins. Like he beat La Luna last year at Nudes in one of the most exciting sets. It
was a 6 set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He beat Sfat obviously to close the year.
I was hoping to play him at Dome Park.
He's so sick.
I wonder how you two would do against each other.
Best teams, Falco.
It'd be fun.
I played him at Pat's house the year before, and I beat him pretty solidly, and he told me after the fact that like that motivated him to work on the Marth matchup.
He's also
he did.
So I talked to him at Pat's house after his set against Sfat, which is
at Dome Park or Pat's house.
Sorry, at Dome Park, which is a really interesting set if you've seen it. The camera just died, which I knew was going to happen. That's fine. We'll just keep going with audio. Wouldn't be analog if one piece of equipment didn't fail. Sorry, guys. I didn't have time to charge my battery at work today.
He's going to blame Melee stats.
I really need to get an
we sabotaged
the adapter for that thing.
You were saying about Rocky?
Rocky. So I talked to him about it. So his set against Sfat's really, really interesting. There's a lot of moments where... You know how a lot of the time, one of the joys of watching Melee is knowing what the person's going to do, even though that's not the option you would choose. It's like you know the combo option they're going to choose.
I feel that with Cobalt.
And then one of the greater joys of Melee is being completely flabbergasted by the option someone took and thinking it was suboptimal until it works out. Every combo that Rocky does on Sfat at Don't Park on the Grass was the second one, where I had no idea he was going to go for what he did, but it was so genius every time he did.
Sounds like you're describing Mango.
No, it's different than Mango in a lot of ways to me, because I think there were certain options where it was like Rocky does dare grab a lot. Even when he didn't need to for SDI. And Manga, like, it's options that are nominally less value, because, like, Dare Grab as Falco is going to give you fewer options for a huge high confirm punish than Dare Shine or Dare Up Tilt. Like, it just is as an option because of how the moves link into each other.
Yeah.
But Rocky still goes for it. Mango, I don't feel like a lot of the time uses those options. He just finds a way to trick you with the really good option that leads into everything that comes later.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention.
It was like low econ punish game is how I would describe it, but it was so sick. And then I talked to him after, and he was like, "Yeah, I punish weird. I just punished really differently from other Falcos. My combo game's really weird, and yeah, it's sort of silly." I was like, "Huh."
I think people have this conception of like Ginger, Squid, skill gap, like the Shizua's Rocky and stuff. I think Rocky is every bit as good as like, and not just in terms of like results or whatever, but I just think even watching him play, like I don't think he's significantly worse, if at all, than someone like Ginger and Squid. Like he really impressed me.
I would probably put them around the same tier with Ginger at the head of the pack.
Yeah, I would probably put
close between them.
I would put it as Ginger, Rocky, Squid right now.
Same.
And this is one of those things where this is one of those reasons why results count and not just head-to-heads. Because if this also brings into question counting locals and blah 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 blah. If you look at,
I knew this discussion would
counting locals.
If you talk about Squid,
but if you talk about counting head-to-heads and count like SoCal locals because they are stacked,
then Squid's the best Falco.
Yeah, Squid's the best Falco, like undeniably. And even if at regionals, SoCal regionals, he has amazing results so much of the time. He beats like incredible he beats fucking Lucky all the time. Yeah, just like once every month or so.
If you just look at the head-to-head sheet, it's like, why is Squid not ranked?
Because he can't perform at majors. So that's where it comes to in terms of like how do you rank players? Because Squid until recently, let me be clear, because recently all the Prometheus
GTX,
boys have been doing really really well at majors and big regionals.
It was GTX that he got top 8.
Yeah,
I think locals are good for trends. Majors are good for seeing if they pass the smell test.
Sure.
And sometimes it can be vice versa with like ice climbers players. I think many times, for instance. But yeah,
it's like, wow, this guy beat Mango. Is he winning his locals?
And then you see Mojo just like he's been doing better lately.
I would not use Bananas. I think Bananas is not a good example of that.
Would you mention something like Fiction and Army?
No, I would talk more about like Flipsy beating Mango.
Oh, wait, sorry. I thought you were talking about like locals not passing the smell test. Or
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, Flipsy like dominates his locals. So
he does.
Yeah, like, I think he loses to he like loses to Blea.
Let's go Flipsy.
Yeah, he loses to like Blea, I think, every now and then when I took a look, but like he pretty much dominates Shiz in region.
Okay. So speaking of,
I ranked him top 30.
Speaking of players who are going to break out by the way, Flipsy is one of them for sure. Fluid is another one.
Yeah, I actually was kind of like, I knew Fluid just because he beat Fiction despite like not being able to wobble against him or whatever. Yeah. But I think Fluid is actually
he does wobble and he's third in Chicago. So
wasn't he trying to, but he just like couldn't do it.
Yeah, he beat Fiction at Genesis 5 and dropped. He didn't get a lot of wobble setups, and the only ones he did, he dropped. I commented this match.
Fiction entered Genesis 5.
Sorry, was it?
Yeah, it was Genesis 5. Fiction lost
last year.
Last year.
Fiction lost to Rocky and Fluid.
Yeah, for like 49th or 65th or something.
I didn't know that.
He just straight up beat him. And it was so
funny.
Sick. It was
Fiction
so sick.
Fluid was like laughing because he couldn't.
No, Fluid wasn't laughing. Fluid was dead fucking serious. He was dead serious that whole match for sure. But it was crazy. And then I watched I knew the name because he's a Chicago player and I know people from Chicago. And I looked him up and I was like, this kid can wobble. And what's more, he's actually really fucking good in region.
I think Fluid might play a secondary Marth now, but I
he does have a secondary Marth.
Because I remember him being like, I'm never doing this stupid matchup against Michael.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, but he's third in Chicago now. After Kels and...
Kels has been ruling that region for so long.
Kels has been number 1 in Chicago for 10 years.
Yep, I saw that.
That's absolutely insane.
It's like other players as dominant in region, local first.
And there's only one time you could have made an argument that he shouldn't be, which was when Abi first moved to Chicago. And that was because Abi didn't go to locals, which I know that Abi was upset about. He wanted to be on the PR from the regionals and stuff he went to.
Yeah.
And that's the one time you could have argued that he was did not deserve to be number 1.
Yeah, Kels kind of has an interesting legacy. It's like you think of the Midwest, you think someone like Dark Rain through the like post MLG-ish era. But like Kels quietly has this like really impressive reputation.
Oh, yeah.
In the in the widely panned attempt at statistical rankings in like 2012 or something, Kels just finished like
I remember
top
that.
25 or something.
That.
People were like, who the hell is Kels? It's like this guy just keeps beating everyone in his region.
Statistical rankings always have some fun things like that, like the one that the one Ambi did,
Hanky Panky,
where it makes Hanky Panky.
Hanky Panky's a god.
Top 10 player.
Yeah.
That was
Have you ever played Hanky?
No.
Oh god, Hanky Pankies.
There's actually a funny story behind Kels. I wanted to find some way to include this in the book, but I just couldn't like jam it in. But Kels heading up to Rule 6, which was a Washington regional with like Mango and a few of the West Coast best around 2012 or so. Kels kept talking about how the Midwest was getting so much better. He's like, dude, like I'm leading the charge. This region is getting really good. Mango's at the same tournament, right? And he's getting like so sick of Kels talking up the Midwest. He's like, dude, I'm just gonna drop in the losers bracket and fuck up Kels, and so I don't have to hear this dumb shit about how the Midwest is going better. So legend has it that Mango entered his set against Bladewise with the intent to lose 0-2 so that he could go into losers bracket and play Kels and beat him.
Wow.
That's really funny.
Legend has it. I heard this from a few people, but I don't know if it's actually true. But
Did you
I like
guys
to think
watch
it is.
Mango's Freedom stream yesterday?
I did not get to tell.
Oh my lord.
The intro was so funny.
It was like a 20-minute intro.
Yeah.
I heard it was very Dr. Disrespect-esque.
Well, he had like bars over his typical intro thing, and he was playing like these hype songs, and he was raising the bars like a pixel at a time, like throughout the entire duration of these
The police
songs.
siren was the part where I started dying of
And
laughter.
then it ends like the bars are, he flings them all the way up, and this intro video starts where it's just like eagles flying, and like it's got all these captions.
He gets
like,
the
Mango's
Bears
free.
missing the field.
That was so beautiful. That was so beautiful.
That's so
And
bad,
then,
man.
and then finally we get to Mango's camera on his face, and still for 5 straight minutes he doesn't say a word. He's just drinking Jameson straight from the bottle. And then he takes a knife, and he's just holding a knife. And it's like, what is Mango gonna do with this knife? He takes a Bud Light and he shotguns it. And then he's drinking. He has like a little glass, like it must have been like whiskey or something. And then he's like, you guys know how we're not gonna get banned? How we're gonna keep track? He's like, look under your chairs. You all have a new emote. And he whips out a breathalyzer. Oh my God. And now he has a breathalyzer emote.
That's super sick. That's really funny.
That was the return of Mango.
That's really funny.
Melee's off to a good start in 2019.
Okay, I will not give... I don't really have any predictions for Melee. My prediction for Melee is that Hungry Box continues to be number 1. And we
Let me
have
know
to
how it
reckon
goes.
with that.
I'll be playing Ultimate.
Yeah. Okay.
Just kidding. I'm playing both.
I know
guys.
you
Don't
had a
worry.
thing you wanted to talk about.
Wait, but before that, just because I feel like it's easy to talk about like American players who are getting really good, but like with Spud doing well at the end of the year,
Yes,
I think it's important to highlight some international talent that I think could really be a big deal in 2019. Pipsqueak, the newly ranked number 1 in Stockholm, obviously with Leffen at number 0, but Pipsqueak, and I'm not just saying that because he was on the Deep Dives podcast last week.
He's really good.
Like he's really good. He's been getting a lot better. I think the UK as a whole is getting super good. So players like Frenzy was on the ballot this year, but players like Frenzy, Sechi, Mint, I think is another really
Mint
strong
is amazing.
name.
Mint is so fucking good, and he's unknown even within Europe because
And
he's from
Maxi too.
Ireland.
Maxi too, the Jigglypuff player, he just got second at Valhalla 2, which happened recently. I just think that the third tier of Europe is really big.
Yeah.
Like if you
It's something we've talked about a lot on the show in terms of how do you rank players from out of...
Legalize NTSC.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
that's-
do need to do that. It's a good point.
Pip was
Everyone
talking
seems to
about
want
Part
that.
of why Spud said he did so well.
Yeah.
Last player I want to say who just there's no reason not to shout him out. Diplomatic Toucan just did incredibly well.
Yeah, he did well at Smash Cam.
Smash Camp. He's a big grinder. He knows everything about everything, so he's going to do well.
He's in our Discord a lot, so
I'm aware.
I talk to him a lot.
Yeah, Toucan's
He had a great performance.
Guy. Okay, but you wanted to talk about so it's very important to talk about because of the fact that our communities landscape is shifting with the release of Ultimate, but how do you participate in the scene without being a top player or a streamer or a commentator or something?
Yeah, so top player, streamer, commentator, tournament organizer. I think these are typically the 4 buckets that you will end up in if you, like, quote unquote, want to make an impact. Obviously, there's many different ways.
I would say competitor instead of top player. Top player is a very small...
You're right. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to take away from your exclusive club.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you though. Like if someone like really wants to grind like that,
like
that's sort of
my point being that you can be a very active member of the community as just a competitor.
Yes, I got you.
Because you have competitive goals, like people will know you for that.
Yeah.
So I think in general, like those are kind of 4 buckets, and if you're well known in the scene in another sense, like you will end up probably falling into one of those buckets at one point or another, if not juggling multiple of them.
Well, I mean, so I think that you should find one of those buckets to do something for the scene. I think the one that people have a sort of skewed view of a lot of the time, there's 2. So competitor, the limitations to that are pretty obvious in terms of how you can participate. And I think commentator is actually the one where people understand it more too. Being a content creator is very, very easy. It's very easy to teach yourself Windows Movie Maker or something, or just talk about...
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I don't mean this sarcastically. I mean this like, you do video interviews and everything. I'm kind of surprised you're saying it's easy.
Oh my god, it's so easy. It's...
I want to hear your perspective on this.
I think that I'm good at interviewing people, and so that sets me apart. But my production value is something pretty much anyone could do. I do have a nice camera, but it has horrible low light settings.
Well,
so
maybe
that's why analog looks like shit.
Maybe you mean it's easy in the same sense that being a competitor is easy, where all you have to do is show up and bring your controller.
Yeah, but I think people don't know that about it.
Sure.
All you have to do to be a content creator is to make the shit. And the Melee community is small and tight-knit enough that I think so many people could do the shit that I did. I got a head start, admittedly, because I started with HTC, and that got me a lot of contacts, and I was able to talk to high-level players at the very beginning. And yes, you might have to put a little bit of money in to get, like, you need a camera, you need a tripod, and you need a microphone. But you can use a cheap camera to do what I do easily. You can use a cheap tripod, and you can use a cheap microphone, and you can do it. It's really easy. You just need to go out there and do it. You might not be able to talk to... I've, built connections, but, okay, Rishi, if some kid who goes to locals in New York was like, hey, I want to do an interview with you when you're at this tournament, you would probably just say yes, as long as it wasn't conflicting with timing, right?
If Pico went
That's what I always say, is like, sure, as long as there's not a conflict.
Yeah, right? And most players will react that way, I think.
Yeah, and then... honestly, for the vast majority of those requests that I've gotten, the interview never happens.
Yeah.
And that's on the part of the interviewer. They have to be the one...
It's because they don't follow through.
Exactly.
And they have to follow through more than you do.
Yeah, they have to follow up with me on when I'm actually going to be free, because a lot of times at big tournaments, that's a very small window.
Which is what I do. I'm just really annoying and DM people constantly at tournaments.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah, but my interviewing thing... which I consider way more my thing than commentary, because I'm like a mediocre commentator who doesn't put a lot of time in.
But it's funny that you say that, because like people recognize, like you fell into the... I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying like
you're commentating
know you
super major, Zane.
I commentate. I did commentary before I did interviews.
But Genesis is a big stage with all the world's premier commentators.
Shut the fuck up. I don't want to talk about this.
You were one of them.
I don't want to talk about this.
That's all I have
to say.
Are
we going to grill him on commentary? Or...
No, that's it. We'll move on.
I will talk about the commentary schedule and all complications therein.
We'll get there
after Genesis.
Okay, yeah.
That's fine. I will talk about it after Genesis.
Yeah.
I do not want to start any shit. The parties who
we'll let the tournament.
They are certainly not listening right now. Definitely not listening to this podcast. But I manage the commentary schedule for Melee at Genesis, and DM me if you want to talk about it. I'm fine with that, but I'm not going to say anything publicly until after Genesis. I'm happy with it.
But the point you were talking earlier about being sort of like doing interviews, like having commentary. The reason I want to bring you up is because I think people like you and Slime are obviously my friends and stuff, but I think it's interesting. Like it's funny that you guys are like like I see your strengths as very, very different than what I think like your face is to the community. Like I think you and Slime are both like, by the majority of the community and like viewers, like they might know you two as like commentators. Like because I know you two, I see you two as like things that I think you would think of yourself as like a strong interview and video producer over commentator. Am I right?
Yes, for sure. I would like to be a stronger commentator, but I would say I'm not an especially strong commentator right now. I have a lot of thoughts about how that's a fine thing, but I do think I'm a good interviewer and I'm a good video producer in as much as that I get the footage I need and I produce it, like the producer aspect of it. I'm not a good DP or like a good editor or anything. I'm an okay editor from like stuff that I've taught myself over the last year. But there's people in the community who are way, way better than me. Like Envy's the best DP in the Melee community. He's incredible.
But so how do you like navigate sort of that dissonance between knowing sort of like having this like internal image of yourself and like what you're bringing to the community versus like what may be like externally seen as you falling into one of those buckets? I mean,
it's been easier than it might have been because I have received pretty much only positive feedback for my commentary. I mean, sorry for my. That's definitely not true. For my interviews, I've received pretty much only positive feedback for my interviews. So it's been pretty easy to just be like, oh, people like what I'm doing, and I can just keep doing it. I don't know. I don't really feel a sense of dissonance. I think that the sense of dissonance comes from people's perception of what I do well. People have this perception that I'm like really, really trained and good at like being on camera and I like have all these connections, and that's not true. I just tweet at players. It helps me a little bit because I know you and I have my go-to roster of people who I can talk to. Like I know Zach or Kevin will always do an interview with me. I know that Hugo will always do an interview with me because they're my friends. But like when I ask new players, like I've never spoken to Bananas before in my entire life. I just asked Bananas.
You had a very fun interview with him.
Yeah, and it helps because he knows who I am, and he was like, oh, cool, yeah, I'd love to do an interview with you. Yeah. But
you and I didn't know each other too well before you interviewed me, like a little over a year ago.
Right before we started Analog.
That was like a solid like 5 months before Analog.
Yeah, or other stuff too. Like my favorite interviews I've ever done, because the reason I do on location interviews and the reason that a lot of the time I used to try to upload them day of, it doesn't work anymore because I don't have a bigger company backing me, so I get drowned out by the tournament itself. But it's because I want to give people the feeling of what it's like to be at an event. Yeah, so I try to keep my interviews very in the moment. So my favorite interview that I've ever done, my favorite set of interviews, is when I interviewed Chu after he beat Leffen at Shine, and then talked to him again immediately after
I remember
he lost.
Yeah.
Because that was crazy. You're never going to see anything like that again. I had done an interview with Chu once before, but I don't think he fucking remembered me at all. And I don't think he's fucking aware of my content. I just was like, hey, I have this camera here. I have a press badge.
Doesn't know who you are.
Yeah, I know. I have a camera here.
I think he can name like 4 people.
I know. I have a camera here. I have this press badge. Would you like to do an interview? And he was like, sure. Yeah, absolutely. The thing that got me to do the interview was the fact that I had equipment with me, and I asked him and was persistent about it. That's it.
So in your case, you don't really feel like, very rarely do you feel like, oh, this person thinks I'm a commentator. In your case, it seems to be that like you may hear it outside of like being at events.
No, I don't know. It depends, because I think the audiences are very different too.
Okay.
Between Twitch and YouTube. Yeah. I've definitely gotten people asking me about commentary, but I will say, when I don't use an alt on net play, mostly out of laziness, but also like sort of philosophically, I think it's fine for me to create the content I do while being mediocre at Melee. So I don't really feel any need to hide, and I've never gotten a lot of vitriol. Like I've gotten it a couple times, but not that much. But what I usually get when I go on netplay is people tell me that they love my interviews and really like the podcast. That's what I see a lot more than commentary, and that's also because I do commentary less. But I do think people recognize me for the interviews and stuff.
So let's say you're not a tournament organizer, broadcaster, player, or competitor, or any of the four fields I mentioned. I forget what the other one was. What do you think is like
streamer? But streamer should be expanded to content creator, and I'm saying that's the easiest one to get into. You don't need to make good shit to be a content creator. and you don't need to make good shit to be useful to your community.
Can you relist those 4 again? Content creator, competitor, tournament organizer, and what?
And commentator.
There's some other stuff too, like streamer, behind the scenes stuff.
Well, what do you think is like the biggest area right now that you see underexplored in terms of community contributions?
Wouldn't you just add in like
the homie,
just like beneficiary of the community? Like there are people who just absorb all the content that the contributors are putting out. Like you can engage and participate in the community without
Firepuff.
Fire is a member. Fire is a member of MS. Don't talk bad about Fire.
No, I'm not talking bad about him.
Firepuff receives content and then amplifies it.
Yes.
Fire's my boy.
I would say that is still a method of contributing.
Okay, you're right. That's a different way.
For the longest time,
amplifiers. There's a 6th.
So I'll let you guys in on something. Fire is actually writing a mini scattering report meets like a local rack up on the Riverside.
Oh, that's sick.
Locals.
That's cool.
He attends them or like is sort of active in it.
Basically, this is the best time. And going back to our first episode where we talk about this is the best time to be just a beneficiary of the Smash.
Sorry, yeah. So here's the other thing.
That's interesting. I never would have thought.
Competitor, in the way we've defined it, has a little bit of a strict because you're focused on competing and improving it.
Yeah.
Competing. There is absolutely another category, and it's in a way the most important category to keeping what we love about Melee
pot fillers
alive. Yeah, pot fillers. That's it. That's it. We want those Genesis numbers to come back up to 1,400.
But
and we need you pot fillers there to do that.
But in reality, like the people who come to tournaments and whether they enter the bracket just with the purpose of experiencing it and not actually caring about the competition, or you just get a spectator pass, like those people are getting like a premium experience that all of the other beneficiaries of the Smash community aren't getting. And there's like a barrier to that. Like getting to a tournament, traveling across the country is not exactly easy for everybody. But these days, like there are more and more majors, so it's more accessible than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
Where like if you are that guy who's on Reddit, who's on Twitch and YouTube and absorbing all this content, like that's great.
If you're subbing to a ton of people,
yeah, that's great. But like I would just also recommend, as like someone who's been to these tournaments, like you should go.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a very important category, and it's the guy who shows up and like isn't especially serious about competing, or the girl, sorry, the person who shows up and isn't especially serious about competing, maybe, but just is there and is a member. You're a member of the community by being the member of the community.
This goes back into what I was tweeting yesterday
about being a fan and how you still feel about Mango, but how it's changed so much.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
It's like you have. There's like an excitement that makes you just feel like a kid when you go to an event that's just like something really cool for you and meeting people that you didn't think you'd get to meet.
It's interesting. People bring that up as a symbol of something that's whack with the community because there's so much like celebrity culture. And I very much understand that. Sure, and there's a lot of points to that. But I also never want the feeling of some person coming to their first Melee tournament and like being sort of starstruck to go away. Yeah. I think it's a really cool thing. I know that it's not what old days were like, but it is cool that we've reached that point.
Yeah, the over centralized like celebrity culture, like, and you can get too much of anything, right? Like that's always going to be a risk, but in another sense, like that's the heart of what brings us back to Melee is like.
This is something that Slime and I have talked a good amount about this because the reason why Slime is very devoted to keeping a lot of his comment absurdist, and the reason for that is because to him it's an absurd concept that we have quote unquote storylines. He hates the word storyline.
Yeah, I've talked to him about
that. We have storylines in this fucking like game that we've kept alive through grit and teeth and doesn't even have that big a viewership audience comparatively. Like it's absurd that we have storylines. To me, it's so fucking cool that people can care enough about it to care about storylines and develop these words fail me right now, and I'm really mad because there's a very clear concept, but like these gestalt ideas, that's probably not the word I want, of like, but that are developed by the community as a whole, like a communal understanding that we reach not purely by discussion, but by experience that we call a storyline and that matters to people. Yeah. That's really crazy. That's cool to me. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to sort of the quote unquote narratives that follow people in the scene, like I do think there's a certain kind of value that comes in recognizing them, because that's how you build hype. That's how you like build hype and keep people excited. If you're all just kind of I don't think this is what slime would. I don't think he would go this far. But if you're all just kind of cynical about like the state of whatever activity,
he's a huge mango.
Yeah, of course. I don't think he would. I don't think he is that cynical. Like, because we've talked about this before too.
Yeah,
and I think storylines, like when they're, or narratives or whatever word you want to use to describe them, I think that when they're accurate and they come from a sense of like understanding sort of how much sacrifice there has been to keep Melee alive or at the state where it is right now, I think they actually can be really cool. Like it's not just about storylines, whether a player is going to be top 6 or top 10 or top 25. It's understanding how they might progress in a matchup and overcome a personal demon in bracket.
Sure.
It's about things like for examples, one of the best editorial decisions I ever made was I asked Wobbles to write his recap.
That was the best editorial decision you've ever made.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And just like things like that, him overcoming his personal demons.
Yeah. The Wobbles. Sorry, I cut a note off, but Wobbles' recap of his for the greatest Cinderella stories of all time. His recap of his Evo run. God.
I just had the idea because I had been reading Wobbles' blog a long time ago. I got into the scene around Apex 2013. I'd done my research. I used to read some of like Wobble's posts on Smashboards, and I just sort of, when I was doing that Underdog Run series, I thought to myself, Wobbles is one of the first high level players that whose eloquence really stood out to me, and I just thought like no one would be able to talk about his own experience more than the guy who actually did the run. I think that's one thing that, it's funny, we were talking about Anthony before, like Slime before, but I think writing, I'll always think of him as like one of the scene's most gifted writers. I think he's
for sure
exceptionally talented at that.
That little Twitter snippet he wrote about the first Smash Ultimate tournament he went to was so fucking good. It's one of the best pieces of Smash.
I think he's a good like podcaster and like a good commentator as well. But as far as like his strengths, I do, and I told him this a while ago. Like I do wish he would write more for Bad Melee, because he's a good sketch comedy writer as well.
Yeah,
he is.
Yeah, I think so. Listen, that group of people we're talking about, in terms of like, for lack of a better word, the audience, the viewers, the people, they come to tournaments, but a lot of the time they're there to see this other content and to benefit and experience everything else. Those are most of our audience. We know that. There's a few players in our audience who are like hardcore competitors. There's very few commentators. I know a few listen to us off and on, but not frequently.
I feel like that's important to establish in a base. Like if you have a significant platform, I think like you guys genuinely, like I give you guys shit, but I think you genuinely do a pretty good job of like trying to convey empathy and asking something of your audience to understand sacrifices that have been made to make, I don't want to say just make Melee what it is today, but what goes into people's lives when it comes to being an
that's the thing. All of these things, this is why the Melee community like is this thing that for a lot of us is, the Melee community has all its faults, blah blah blah. I get super negative on here all the time about them.
Yeah, you guys have been like pretty vocal about that stuff.
But it's a community that where the part of it that you like, or Smash in general, it's not just Melee, it's Smash in general. We can quit with the jokes.
Smash.
Went over the limit.
I know.
But Smash in general, it's a community built on goodwill. Yeah. Right? And that's what it always has been, is that we don't do these things for fame or recognition or stuff. For competing, you do it because you want to, like, it's for self-fulfillment. But in the end, the content creators and stuff, it's all for goodwill for the most part.
I think it amazes me like how much people do for nothing in the Melee community. Like I was thinking about this a couple days ago. Like people just develop the framework for us to play Melee online with no lag, like over the course of several years, and that's hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of work.
Yeah,
and that's just one thing. Like that's not including all the manpower it takes to run tournaments at a loss for 15 years. It's crazy.
I think the one thing I do want to get across in this is, so if you're a listener, one of our listeners who really enjoys this sort of stuff, making content takes time, and I always am an advocate for using your time well, and putting a ton of time into content that's not giving you personal fulfillment, or that you don't think you're getting out what you want out of it because an audience isn't listening or something, can be really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I can speak firsthand from that.
But
I think all of us can.
But it's way easier than you think to make something. And I've seen a lot of smaller Smash podcasts pop up in the past few months, and it makes me really happy to see them. I wish there was more video content in the scene. It's so easy. Fucking Kenneki made one of maybe my favorite video on Melee all year. And it is the lowest production. The Fox versus Puff video.
That's a pretty solid
breaking
one.
down the Leffen and Plup ways of killing.
Right.
Maybe my favorite like analytical breakdown all year, and it is shit quality. Like, it is terrible mic. It's obviously Windows Movie Maker. It's graphs put in, and it's amazing. It's so good.
Well,
it's fucking good.
I was gonna bring up like the amateur video creators who want to like contribute to the gameplay and do analysis type of things. That, like, when Ultimate came out, you go on YouTube and you look up any character, there are hundreds of videos out right now, and some of them are just people looking into a webcam with no editing. And that's not always bad.
Here's the other thing too. I think if you asked Kenneki about his analysis skills, he would say, I'm not a super skilled player. I don't have a big place to be talking about this. But what Kenneki did is he just looked at stats and he made a fucking great video out of it.
So I guess, like, don't assume that what you're thinking is already out there necessarily.
Yeah, I think making videos is easier than you think it is.
I really want to sort of like really drive home the point about empathy, though. And I think a lot of empathy that goes into creating content, it almost comes from, and this is very weird, and I think you've noticed this through me and how I tend to write, is it comes through sort of resisting a lot of like it's a little different for weekly recaps because it allows me sort of be more like quippy. But as far as like when it came to writing a book or writing more long form content or creating long form content, I take kind of a weird approach to it, and I don't think this works well for everyone, but it's just sort of how I do it. I think that almost like having a deeper sense of empathy requires a lot of sort of not necessarily jumping to your first like emotional reaction when something happens or when you learn something. It's really taking it for what it is, looking at like the broader context of what it's involved in, like how a player performs at a tournament, having a sense of empathy for the player, but also everyone else involved, and then taking a step back and, you know, like when you look at the broader picture, you really then get into like the grit of what your emotional conclusion is, if that makes sense. So Zane, you've read a lot of my long form work. I'm like pretty up forth with how like dry my I take it.
And that's why Monday Morning Marth is my favorite thing you write.
Because it's more just like me being...
Because Melee for me, I love your long form stuff, and I do think that I'm really big into archival stuff. I think the Book of Melee, what I've read of it, really is truly remarkable to put that much amount of work to.
But you see why I would take a more dry and
absolutely. But
because the parts where it has the like wobble story, for instance, it has a greater emotion.
Yes, but I love Monday Morning Marth because there's an opinion and emotion and person behind it.
It's funny because I feel very opposite. I don't feel at home writing op-ed style. I feel very like sort of it gives me more of an opportunity to sort of like reveal part of myself, like to inject. But like as far as creating content, I think one of God, I wish I had another word other than creating content. But
content, there's no good synonym for
material.
Content. There's no good synonym.
As far as making whatever you want.
Something I've dealt with for the past 3 years.
Okay, so we're all on board on the content.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think as far as like making material, and this is sounding very funny coming from someone that writes an op-ed every week about his thoughts, but like when it comes to really pursuing these sorts of things, I think it's important to try to keep yourself out of it. You have to like have a baseline for who you are, but for bigger stuff, I think it's really important to have a deeper sense of emotional understanding of your audience and the people you're writing about, and to not like put yourself in that.
I think putting yourself in it can still matter.
No, of
you
course.
put yourself in your op-ed a bunch of times.
Yeah, but that's why what I'm saying before, like it feels almost unnatural for me to do that sometimes because like
I think you should do it. I think it's very good. You know what one of the pieces of your op-ed I remember the most is the part where you write about Anoke goes to Shine and your experience at it.
Well, you were also staying over, so you saw me reading it out loud.
You did actually.
You
proofed it with me. So.
Yeah, I literally read it out loud. And you were giving me good advice.
Okay, but we really need to wrap up. I think being a viewer and an audience member is super, super good and valuable and maybe the most valuable part of our community. Yeah. But and that's great. And I love you guys for being our viewers. I really, really do. Our listeners, like, I think it's one of the most magical things that we just have, that Melee has an audience. But if you get that little urge in you to make something and to have someone recognize your work, because we all get that. We all have egos. It's easier than you think. The last thing, the example I want to bring up about this is, so JD got into a fight on Twitter a couple of weeks ago because he called out Ludwig.
This was so funny.
Because he called out Ludwig for, like, I hate seeing Ludwig on stream. It just feels so self-promotion when he puts a camera of himself on stream. JD also didn't realize that
he took it back.
Stream was a net play tournament that Ludwig was hosting, so it was like, that was dumb. But he admitted he was bitter, and I talked to Slime about this. And the conclusion we came to is, does JD not just know that you just have to make the shit? And to JD's credit, he has made a lot of stuff. And a lot of it's been...
this power rankings rap. Especially when he roasted Darktooth.
I know. Full hop nares. It's the best line. A lot of his content has been very, very good. But that sentence, just in absentia, is what I want to talk about. Doesn't he know that you just have to make the shit? Mm-hmm. Especially because JD was like, oh, Slime, I respect you because I respect the grind. Dude, Ludwig grinds so much harder than Slime. Slime doesn't grind at all. And he'll admit that any fucking day of the week. Ludwig grinds. It may be very obvious grinding to get somewhere, but that's why he's successful, because he grinds.
He puts in the hours.
You put in the hours. And the hardest part of my job, to how we started this big whole long tangent, the hardest part of my job...
No, I had a list of people I want to shout out.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. The hardest part of my job is saying I'm going to not enjoy myself playing friendlies at this major because I'm going to track down an interview instead.
Right.
That's the hardest part of my job.
Yeah.
But then it feels so fucking good when I do an interview and people like it. Mm-hmm. And they think that I brought something of value to the scene. You got to put in the work.
We do.
That's all.
I wonder how many of the people who we kind of bucketed into, like, the audience and people who are taking in the content, I wonder how much they think about their own place in the Smash community.
I think people think about it constantly, more and more.
Even if they're not like a contributor?
I don't think so at all.
I feel like contributors think more about that than the people who are...
I think the people who take it Smash is like their fourth or fifth.
No. I think there's definitely a ton of people who don't think about it, but I think that there are a lot of people in Smash specifically who are currently finding themselves in an audience member bucket and who are thinking of ways that they can become something else.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because I was just going to say, like, anyone who's listening who has thought about it or is now thinking about it, like, let us know, because we like talking about that stuff. In our Discord / we've had some good conversations already with people in our live chats with the Patreons people. Mm-hmm. But if you don't want to do that, you can honestly just come into our Discord and hang out. So let us know.
All right. Anoke, thank you so much for being on the show. Do your shout outs.
I want to shout out all the Melee Stats boys. I want to shout out Wheat, Sleepy K, Oven, Fairfax, Ambisinister, Algebra, Save, Tafo, Chroma, Dingus, Fire, KB, Liam, Practical Task, Cyclops, and Leon, YCZ. You guys are all awesome, and they're all part of Melee Stats, and you should definitely follow those guys. They do a lot of work for the scene. They watch more tournaments than anyone else.
They're also all just really good follows for other reasons. Like every single person on that list. Especially Leon. But also, like, if you love puns and bad jokes, follow Dingus Master and you will be satisfied for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and check out the Melee Stats website. Ding and I write for it every week.
Yep. All right, guys, that was our very long episode back. Hope you enjoyed it. I know we rambled a lot at the end there on roles within the communities. I want to say sorry for us taking 20 minutes to get to the point that audience members are important, but that is a really big takeaway.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening and being an audience member. We love it, and
Hope
hopefully
you enjoyed this episode of 2.5 Brown Men.
All right, see you guys. Thanks.